All right, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, family. This is Sister Kadara Muhammad with the Muhammad University of Islam Homeschool Network. First, let us begin in prayer. We're going to open up in prayer. Attention prayer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praises are due to Thee, O Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of this day of requital. Thee do we serve, and Thee do we beseech for help. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after they've heard Thy holy and divine teachings. Ameen. Ameen. Praise be to Allah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted Christ. And I also bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a divine reminder, warner, and leader among us. I'd like to greet my beautiful audience with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Please bear with us. This is live, so everything is in real time. So I'm getting a few texts from different people. So just bear with us, please, while we get through some of these technical difficulties. Okay. All right. Thank you. Praise God. Okay. So at this time, what we'd like to do, first of all, this is day one of our professional development series for our homeschool educators, and we are so excited. So we are so excited today because we have a beautiful sister who is going to grace us with her presence and give us some strategies, her expertise on organizing and planning. And also, before we get started, we're going to have Sister Isabel, when she joins us, to read the bio of our sister, Sister Wakiti Muhammad, out of Houston, Texas. Okay, I think Sister Isabel, is Sister Isabel with us? Okay. Praise to Allah. So while Sister Isabel is getting, Sister Isabel, can you hear me? Okay, well, while Sister Isabel is coming on, I can't tell if she can hear me or not. But what I want to do, I want to take care of a few housekeeping issues. I'd like the audience to know that you can and are able to submit questions. If you are on our website, we do have a chat room that you can submit questions to. Also, I'm going to enable the Q&A session here via this Google Hangout so that you can submit your questions as well, okay? And then as time allows throughout the presentation of Sister Wakiti, we'll entertain those questions, okay? All right, Sister Isabel, are you there with us? Okay. Okay, that's fine. I can't hear her. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief bio of our sister, Sister Wakiti Muhammad. Sister Wakiti Muhammad is the co-founder and director of the Elevated Places K through 12 school in Houston, Texas. Sister Wakiti is originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. She began her career as a certified teacher in inner city schools after earning her BA in elementary education from Southern University. Okay, praise be to Allah. In 2005, she relocated to Houston, Texas after her family home was actually destroyed by the horrific Hurricane Katrina. In Houston, Mrs. Muhammad moved into a private education, vowing to further the vision and educational program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and praise be to Allah for that. Mrs. Muhammad is currently a doctoral student. She's pursuing a PhD in educational leadership. Her research and lectures on individual instruction, grit, and project-based learning and their relationship to student acceleration has garnered much attention within the educational community. So we are so very excited to hear from this wife, this mother, this educator, Sister Wakiti Muhammad. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, ma'am. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah. We'll get right into it. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praises are due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent and most merciful. God, I humbly thank you all so much for inviting me to this call today. And prayerfully, anything that I say or share that Allah blesses me with, you all can utilize so that we all can have an absolutely phenomenal year and be our absolute best as instructors, as educators, as leaders of what I like to call the new school of Muhammad. In Torchlight for America, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, says of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that he saw the inherent weaknesses within our school system and determined that for Black people to gain the new tools needed to build a new reality for themselves, that we had to establish an independent school system for ourselves, that we would be able to establish a new and a firmer, a better foundation. And that's what we're all on this call for. That's what all across the nation we have MUIs for. That is the reason that we've all joined for that common purpose today, which is to make sure that our students have the absolute best, but based on his vision, based on his philosophy. And that's what I'd like to share a couple of things with you all today on. Every school year, I like to begin myself as a teacher and our staff with what I call creating the necessary climate. How do we create the absolutely necessary climate that helps to produce gods? How do we do that? Well, in order to do that, I believe that we use what we like to call the 3 C's. First is commitment. Second is content. Third is communication. Content, let's start there. Or commitment. Let's start at the beginning with commitment. When I ask the teachers and I ask myself to kind of reflect on what is it that our commitment to this particular vision, and everybody, of course, has their own gifts and talents that they bring to the Nation of Islam, but the educators are extremely important. Of course, we know the minister has said several times that our education is the key. He even wrote a book entitled Education is the Key. And of course, as teachers, we're a vital part of that. You can't have an educational process without the main person, which is the main two people, which will be the instructor and then the student. As instructors, it's our duty to make sure that we're committed to this process. And so I always start first with the commitment level, because of course we know that leadership always dictates the entire movement. It helps to facilitate the culture. It helps to determine where the vision is of this institution. So I ask the students to first start, or the teachers rather, to start with commitment. What is our commitment to our God in that particular process? What is the commitment to our God? What does my responsibility as an instructress or an instructor at a Nation of Islam school, what is my responsibility have to do with Allah? How am I connected to a greater vision? Because if we don't understand that what we're doing, it may seem like a small drop in a hat, but if we don't understand the totality and the magnitude of how serious it is that we as educators, or how serious it is as educators, what we bring to the table, then we really tremendously lose a serious component, which of course is the education of our students. What is our responsibility as educators to Allah? Well, I like to look in the first book and ask him himself. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 and 28, Allah says in the Bible, he starts talking about how he created man. And of course, out of his single essence, he created all of us. Then he gives a specific instruction. In verse 28, he says, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, and then subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. We have a responsibility. Their responsibility is we have to teach them how to be fruitful. We have to teach them how to overcome. We have to teach them how to subdue. We know that the word subdue means to overcome, to reclaim, to replenish, to be better than what it is that we were. So how do we do that? As educators, our direct job every single day, we're working, we are fulfilling the role and the duty. We are like God's vicegerents on earth. We are his helpers every single day. The position of a teacher is a divine one. And if we don't understand that as educators, then we miss something, because we're not going to be able to connect the God in us to the God in the students. So that's where it starts first, in recognizing how lofty our position is with Allah himself. And then what is our commitment to our nation? How does our work benefit this great nation that we're a part of? That's very, very important, because as we know that as teachers, we're not always blessed, I would say, to receive the most hefty paycheck. We do this most of the time out of love, with little charity. But all of us, of course, can be doing something else. All of us are very gifted and have many letters behind our names and all of this. It's just the gifts and talents that we bring to the table, we can do so much with. However, what is our duty and our responsibility, and how do what we do benefit our great nation? I always like to remind the parents, the staff, and all of the students that everything that a teacher does is an investment in the future of the security of our nation. Because without a doubt, these students are going to be responsible for carrying this vision further. Without a doubt, these students, as the minister is talking consistently to us and teaching to us, and of course, with all of the lectures from the time and what must be done, he knows just as well as we better know that the future is in our youth. We are responsible for teaching those, for training those, and giving him adequate assistance. So without the instructors, without the MUIs and the affiliate schools, where would this nation be? So we really, really have to, again, understand the importance of our duties as educators. And then I ask, well, what is the commitment to myself? I know and understand how big this is. I know and understand how important this is. But what is the commitment that I have to myself? What does my work ethic, what does my attitude say about what I'm doing and who I am? What do I bring to the table as an educator? If I know that, then what is it about my attitude? What is it about my work? Do I come to school every day? You know, I hate the fact that I had to come here today. I'm really tired. Look, let's get this over with. I don't really feel like doing this today. Well, don't come to school. Then don't come to school. Don't show up. We know that when we attend the mosque, the first thing we do is go through a check procedure. That check procedure is always physical, but it always has a spiritual connotation as well. And that spiritual check is to make sure that our spirit is right, that we're not coming there with a nasty spirit or an agitated spirit, because we don't want to contaminate what's going on in this process. What's going on in the process is that gods are being formed, gods are being shapened. And so we have to come with the right spirit, the right attitude, and be willing to work as hard as anybody else, because students don't always come very motivated. You know, they didn't always want to wake up and come to school. They would rather sit at home and do nothing, as the Holy Quran says, that we are heavily inclined to the earth. That's just natural. We naturally just don't want to do nothing. But we have to be productive. And how do we inspire them if we don't bring anything to the table? We have to have enough spirit and enough energy for everybody in the atmosphere. And as educational leaders, we really have to be the ones that stay on 10, because we have to have enough for the teachers. We have to have enough for the entire staff. We have to have enough for the students. We have to have enough for all of our support. We have to have enough for the community to let them know that what we're doing is very, very important. What we're doing is extremely divine. So we have to carry that spirit and that energy, and you can't come ill prepared. You can't come lazy to something like this when you're talking about fashioning a God. He didn't come lazy like that. As we go back and reference Genesis, every single day he was working. He created the heaven. He created the sun and the moon and the stars. He created the earth. He created the sea. He created the trees. What was he doing? He was working. He was being productive. And if we're going to create and fashion people just like him, then we have to be about his business. We have to. What is our commitment? What is our commitment to the school? What is our actual commitment to the school? How do we represent the school that we're a part of? How do we represent MUI? How do we represent our individual homeschool? How do we represent Elevated Places, Torchlight, any of the other Blackstone, all of the affiliate schools? How do we actually represent those particular schools? Because from my understanding, and people ask me this all the time, all across the nation, why is it that it seems like a lot of people may be drawn to one school versus the other? It's the energy. It's the energy. Nobody wants to be a part of a losing team. So you have to make sure that when you come, that you are representing the institution that you belong to with the highest esteem and a lot of dignity. You have to understand, and they have to understand by talking to you and through your works, that this is a prestigious institution. When you put the name Muhammad on it, then everything that comes through it has to be held with such dignity that it makes people want to join you, because again, they want to be a part of your success. They want to be a part of what it is that you're doing when they see you going somewhere. But as the minister says, if you going where, then any road will take you there. You don't need too much help to go nowhere. But when you're really, really focused and you really understand the commitment and the brand that you represent, then you have to walk with a certain swagger. You have to talk with a certain swagger. And I'm saying swagger, but again, interchanging it with spirit, because I like to keep it fresh and modern. But we have to represent our brand with such tenacity and such vivaciousness, such life, that it draws and attracts people to us and not repels people to us. And when you come with that fundraiser, when you come with that school function, then the mosque is packed. The venue is packed. Why? Because people want to be a part of what it is that you bring into the table. What is the commitment that I have to my students? Very important. What is the commitment that I have to my students? How do I actually view them? How does my true perception of them match how God sees them? Because that's a very, very difficult task for us who have been bogged down with all types of engrams, all types of low esteem and low self-worth. How do you go and bring something to somebody when you don't really believe that about yourself? You have to stay prayed up. You have to stay connected to the word of God that's reaffirming all of us. And when you don't believe something about yourself, then forget your own thoughts and lean on God's words. What does he say about you? So our motto at the Elevated Places is, I am what God says I am. Not what the world says I am. I am what God says I am. And God says I'm a God just like him. So regardless to what the world says, regardless to what the parents may say, regardless to what you hear other teachers may say, I have to let the students know consistently over and over and over and over again, you are in fact what God says that you are. Because we often do that. And you can put a little F with our red pens and our green pens and all of that. We can put F's all across their papers. and tear them down. And we can say, I can tell you didn't do this because you didn't study and you're lazy and you're blah, blah, blah. And sometimes all of that may be true, because unfortunately we're all in imperfected states at this time. But we have to keep the main thing that these are God's children. We have to keep it an understanding that they are, in fact, who God says that they are. And so we have to close the gap. We have to close the gap with what we think that they are, what the media will say that they are, the imperfections that we see in them on a daily basis. We have to check that, because they all come. This is just like any other relationship. One to another, sister to brother, husband to wife, parent to child. We see each other's imperfections all the time. But how do you look beyond those faults, as the gospel song says, and see their needs? How do we look beyond the faults and see their needs? So we have to stay committed to our students. After commitment to my God, commitment to my nation, commitment to myself, commitment to my school, and the commitment to my students. We ask the teachers, what is your content like? Because it's very, very important. And all of this, of course, is, so you'll hear me say that word important a lot. But content is extremely important, because we know that the most important goal and lesson that they can have definitely is character. That's not something that can be taught in any book. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in his Education is the Key, that character is the sea in which all knowledge floats. So we understand, more importantly, that the benefit of being in a Muslim institution, first and foremost, is that not only that you're educated, but that you're safeguarded in an area and in an environment that could help shape your character. So we know and understand that, but we cannot forget about the content. I remember vividly, Brother Mustafa, our Supreme Captain, mentioned years ago, it had to be about 5 to 6 years ago, and he said, I remember my own experiences at the MUI when I was growing up. And he said, I knew all of my wants and beliefs, and I knew all of the messenger's teachings, but I didn't know any American history. I didn't know this particular thing. I didn't know that particular thing that goes on in traditional bodies of knowledge. So content is very, very important, because we have to balance it out. Too often you hear people that are Muslims, which there is no excuse at all for not, as a Muslim, for not sending your child to a Muslim school if one is available. But often you hear the excuse that I can't because I'm not really sure on what it is that they're teaching, or my child may not get enough, or I may not feel like they're prepared, quote unquote. I may not feel that my students are going to be prepared when they leave this Muslim institution to do something else. Are they going to be prepared to attend high school if there is no high school? Are they going to be prepared to attend college? So we have to give them the right content. How do we make sure that we're giving them the right content without sacrificing what it is that we believe? How do we make sure that we're giving them real content without making sure that we're pumping one thing over what we know for a fact is the truth, without weakening our foundation? So we always ask these questions. Content based on point one, content based on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of course, through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As we consider the time and what must be done, which I believe, and all of us probably believe, is the latest revelation of God. As we consider the time and what must be done, how do we build a new civilization? And where does my content come from? My content has to change realistically whenever the minister speaks. What do I mean by that? And how does that even relate? And how do I make that happen? When I have a textbook here that I have to get information through, I want to make sure that I'm covering all of this content that may be in this book. And I want to have these skills and these benchmarks and all of this particular criteria that I want to make sure from the state and all of this other stuff that's important. but it has absolutely no relevance if we're not making it relative or relevant to what's going on in today's time. So I may be teaching you, I may teach a little history lesson, but I have to teach it from the standpoint of the secret relationship between blacks and Jews. At one point, we removed all of the history books, and that was their only history book. We taught it for an entire, I believe, maybe 2 years. That was their entire history lesson. Why? Because everything was in there. Everything was in there. We went straight from the secret relationships between blacks and Jews, and when there was a name, here's an opportunity for you to learn about autobiographies. Here's your opportunity for you to learn about biographies. You're talking about the cotton trade. You're talking about civil rights. You're talking about civil war. You're talking about all of these different industrial periods and the technological period and all these different ages. All of that's right there in the secret relationships between blacks and Jews. As the minister talked about the wheel, and he's talking about Ezekiel. These things are real live scientific facts. So why isn't that the basis of my science lesson? I have to now go and start talking about all of these materials that made up the wheel. I have to talk about aerodynamics. I have to talk about engineering from a high level of how you can actually construct these particular devices that confound speed to this day. We have to make sure that what we're teaching and the content that we're teaching, it definitely hits on the small standards and benchmarks, but it's relevant to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is teaching us today. So whenever he's teaching, whatever time and what must be done is on for that week, we have to go and incorporate it on that Monday. Because the students may not all watch it. Parents may not all be watching it. But it must be a part of our instruction and our content if we are teachers in his way. We got to remember again whose school this is. Whose vision is this? This is not ours. This is our own independent interpretation of it, and this is our contribution to it. But this is not our school. This is the school that was set forth by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and being carried into more vision. The vision is made clearer by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So we have to represent it as that, and we have to make sure that we're on the same page that he's on. So sometimes our lessons plans, they may change a little bit. We may come and be ready to teach something, but the minister came to us and spoke at a believers meeting on Tuesday. So that means on Tuesday night, I'm working. That means on Wednesday morning, I'm working. I'm reviewing my notes. I'm trying to see what it is that he said that I can tie into my lesson for today. Because if I'm not bringing consistent revelation to them, I'm out of step. I'm out of step. And if I'm out of step at any point, then my students are going to be ill prepared. Content based on planning. This is extremely important. I said again, I was going to say the word important several times. But our content based on planning. Am I making this up as I go along? I know often times I've seen this in several different staff or in just organizations, period, in different schools, that you may have teachers who come and they're not prepared. You come and you think you're going to prepare on a day of. You come and you may use a lesson plan that you had from last year without any revisions, without any updatings. And nothing is wrong with recycling. Nothing is wrong with that. But again, am I making some of this information up? Because when I say the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, I need to be able, like a scientist as I want my students to be, I have to deal with actual facts. I need to be able to come back and bring the date and time, the lecture, the page, the book. I need to give them all of that as references. Because when parents come back to me, I need to let them know that this is what we've been working on. I need to make sure that when I'm planning, that my lesson is not something that's so utterly boring that the students lose fun in it. Because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said himself that learning should be fun. So if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. If they're not excited, you're doing it wrong. And how does that happen? How do we make so many mistakes It's with our delivery. It's with poor planning. If you come in and you're teaching your lesson, make sure that you have enough time. Make sure that you have enough time in preparation, that you've taken out all of your manipulatives, that I looked on the internet. It's no excuse today with modern technology because everything is available. That I've looked and I've researched, I've asked other teachers, I've had an opportunity to talk and discuss with my peers, people who may have been doing this a very long time, people who are fresh and out of school and may have wonderful, innovative ideas. I've asked the students, which is extremely important, and allowed them to guide me in how I'm planning for my lessons. So all of that is very, very important. We have to plan properly. It's nothing worse than a student showing up and a teacher is not ready. It's nothing worse than a teacher still trying to take out her materials, take out her books, turn to page this. We did that already, Miss Muhammad. Oh, I apologize. Go ahead and turn back to page 60. We did that too. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where my head is today. Well, you better go and find your head because they deserve something better than that. They deserve a teacher who is not only on time, but who is prepared and ready to work so that you set the precedence of what it is that you expect from your students. Because, of course, leadership is being determined through your actions. So how am I supposed to, as a student, come and you want me to be ready? You want me to be organized. You want me to have my lessons all on point. You want me to be extremely disciplined and extremely civilized, and yet you total opposite in my demonstration. When I go up there, I'm the professional. I am the example that I want you to set, that I want you to set all of your actions based off of. I'm at my board. I'm teaching. I'm the professional. I'm walking around. I'm not sitting down. What am I doing? Because that means that I'm not being active. I'm doing all of this, but I've planned to do it all. I didn't run out of time. I had this all masterfully orchestrated. I was doing this based on a system. I was based on my organization and my systems that I planned for my students. Be worth that. They're worth that. And so we have to step it up a notch in our planning of our activities. I hear lots of people say that. But, you know, I just want to make sure that it's fun and we're going to experiment and we're going to go and see the world because we're homeschooling and this is different and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, what have the students learned? What can you truly assess them on? Absolutely nothing. They can't give you any real feedback and tell you how anything that they learned relates to anything else. They can't tell you how they're going to use that information. And I always have this little saying with my students: how do you know when you've learned something? Because you've used it. How do you know when you have mastered it? Because you can teach it. Can you feel comfortable that your students can teach the other ones that are coming on or coming along? Can they teach someone else in their peer group or beneath their particular level? So we have to plan properly by making sure not only that the lessons are current and relevant, but that they're fun, that they're planned well, that they're organized, that we are using our absolute best wisdom and striving to use cross-curriculum activities whenever possible. If I'm teaching you about fractions, that I'm in the kitchen baking, that I'm cutting up different ingredients, that I'm using measuring cups. If I'm teaching you about science, that I'm baking or planting some navy beans, I'm integrating mathematics with it. I'm integrating agriculture with it. Of course, every single subject must have a language and vocabulary component. It's absolutely necessary that the students know how to communicate through every single content area that they have. On the highest level, they should be able to explain it. They should be able to decipher what all of the words in the particular lesson not only mean, but how they're being used, their denotation from the connotations of it. They should be able to be immersed in the vocabulary from the moment you put a lesson on the board or wherever you're putting it at. So the lessons must be planned. They must be planned and must be planned well. How do we base our content on critical thinking? What is the basic level of knowledge? I know in Dynamics we're taught, and they have something called the basic. What is the basic level of this? What is it that I truly want you all to get to? This is where I make sure that I tell all staff members, and I always try to make sure that I'm just letting everyone know that you have to get to the basic point of where you want your students to end up at. Start with the end point in mind. What do I mean by that? Everything that's in the textbook is not relevant. Everything that's in the textbook is not going to be usable information. We waste too much time in the same material that students may or may not ever see again. If you look through the material and you look through your textbooks, the first thing I love to teach, that I love to have the teachers to do is to go straight to their textbook and look through the table of contents. What is it that you actually use today? Some of these things they'll never see again. I guarantee you. Even if it's a particular skill that they must use or must need, you'll see some of that in college. And even that they may not ever use again. Because when you have a particular job or you want particular skills, you always go to that particular, specialized training or that specialized information that you would need. And so we have to make sure that we're not wasting time. I don't want to belabor this point, but I definitely want to get this point over, because I think that this is a serious hindrance and a very big barrier to making sure that our students are accelerating at a rapid manner. And people may ask all the time, well, how do you get the students to graduate at 14 and at 15 years old? You have to focus on the usable information, making sure that they're mastering the things that they're going to need, and that it's at the basic level so that they can understand it. When the messenger said you put supreme wisdom in a baby bottle, that's true. They're supposed to be learning algebra in pre-K, in kindergarten. Those concepts will build on one another. Those particular concepts they will have. It's a waste of time to consistently stay on material that you know for sure that you haven't even seen and don't remember. If you as a teacher haven't seen it and don't remember it, then that means it has not been useful to you over a long period of time. How do we make sure that our students are being taught to critically think? You know, we have this saying all the time in the Nation of Islam, you have to be a thinker to walk with Farrakhan. And he says all the time he is not trying to reproduce or make parrots, but that he wants to produce intelligent thinking men and women. How do we make sure that we're not producing worker bees, but that we're actually in fact producing queens and king bees? How do we make sure that we're doing that? We have to get them to think outside of the box. Now, with modern technology, there are so many current practices in education that help to facilitate thinking on a higher level. One of those that I absolutely love is called project-based learning. If you go back and you study, or try to find some research on project-based learning, it was initially created in medical schools for medical students to learn how to apply realistic, or the information that they were learning in the book, to realistic things that were going on in real life. And this has been an absolutely inspirational area where the students can learn from, I would say, a very introspective level, because it teaches you how to make sure that instead of me saying, let's go and take a trip to Costa Rica, no, project-based learning actually brings it a little bit deeper. What do you need in order to go to Costa Rica? Where is Costa Rica? How do you get there? Let's turn our classroom into Costa Rica. What type of trees do they have in Costa Rica? What type of food do they eat in Costa Rica? What type of modes of transportation are available to get there, and do they have? What languages do they speak? What type of mathematics and their currency is used? What is their government like? And through one particular content, you see all of these different skills being used on an in-depth basis. Project-based learning, student-based learning, all of these new and innovative techniques help to teach our students how to critically think. And of course, we make sure that the content is based on our modern times. We have to make sure, without a doubt, that we're preparing our students for the digital age. We cannot continuously make sure that we're teaching them with paper and pencil when the world has moved up into iPads and all of those other things. We have to stay current with the times. Last but not least, the last C here is communication. And with communication, how am I communicating with my students? Am I providing them the real blueprint to be not only successful in my class, but with their own individual life's goals? Do I even know what it is that they want to do? Outside of, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, because they all say that. But am I really, really understanding exactly what it is that they want to do? And am I striving to curtail all of my lessons to help prepare them to get there? Because if I have a student who in truth wants to be an engineer, I can't teach them the same way that I want to teach a student who desires to be a writer. Then my lesson should change. My lesson should benefit the student and where they are and what their individual gifts and talents will be to their nation. Otherwise, what am I teaching them to do? So the teaching has to be individualized. The teachings have to be based on my vision for this particular student, what it is that I desire for them to be, what it is that, that they desire for them to be, and then myself, the student, and the parents all have to be on the same page about it. We all have to be on the same page, making sure that we are training and clearly representing to them the best of what it is that they need on a consistent basis. What is my communication with the parents? For anyone who actually has students outside of their own, what is your communication like with the parents? One of the things that we love to say at the Elevated Places is that education is based on a triangle effect. And a triangle effect is the student, the parent, and the teacher. Communication is based on the student, the parent, and the teacher. That's extremely important. Don't allow any parents or anybody else to tell you that teaching and educating a student is just your responsibility as a teacher, because it's not. We have to hold the parents accountable just as well, and the community. None of this should be all on us, because this is a community effort. It benefits the community, and so we all need to make sure that as a united community that we're pulling together to do whatever we need to do for the benefit of all of our students. What is my communication with myself? Being reflective as an educator is vital to making sure that you're consistently growing. Be honest with you about where you are, about where your students are. Be honest about, are you the best fit for them? Be honest about, are you using the best materials? Are you studying enough? Are you bringing enough to the table? Be honest about, you know what, my child, my son, my daughter, my students, they've been receiving C's or they've been receiving A's. I bring them somewhere else, they may get an F. What does that say? Does that say that that other person was too difficult? Does it say that I'm too easy? Just ask yourself and ponder on your work. This is your profession. and we have to be professional about it. Teaching students is not a lightweight responsibility. This whole process is not a lightweight responsibility when you're talking about cultivating minds. When you're talking about shaping future gods and future rulers, then we have to make sure that we are as sharp as we possibly can be. And through that sharpness, it's done from our prayer, our consistent study, our work ethic, and definitely tools like this. Making sure that we're sharing with other people, being honest about what I did. It didn't work. This did work. Why don't you try this? And every time I come, I got to step it up a notch. And so I'd like to leave you all with that little small portion and hopefully entertain a few questions. Hopefully something that I said was helped to some small degree. I tried to rush a lot of things. Usually professional developments for us last several hours. And I wanted to kind of condense it to 15 minutes because I do know that everybody has other things and the responsibilities that they have to get to. So thank you all. I'd like to turn it over to Sister Kadara. So that you,
wow. Look, I rather you just keep talking instead of turning it over to me, Sister Wakiti. Oh my word, sister. Praise be to Allah. Thank you so very much for that presentation. From what I gathered from what you just said, you know, with organizing and planning, it, you know, when we, first of all, it starts with our attitude. That's what I got. It starts with our attitude toward, like you said, educating, you know, our children. What is our attitude about that from the jump, right? Because that's going to determine our level of commitment, right, to the content, right, and our level of commitment to how we communicate with them first, and with ourselves, and with the parents, if we have other children that we may have within our homeschools, or other children that we have within our affiliate schools or MUIs across the nation. Wow, that's powerful. And then what I also got from it as well was that this whole organizing and planning, it takes place throughout the year. It never stops, you know, because we are constantly changing. The time is changing. You know, like you said, when the minister speaks, I bear witness to that. When the minister speaks, okay, next lesson, no matter what I had planned for, you know, the previous day, when the minister speaks, oh, okay, change your plans. We're going to discuss this now, you know, so I bear witness to that as well. So praise be to Allah. We are going to entertain, let's see, some questions. Let me find out if my staff is with me still. I see some stagnant sister Dawn.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Are you monitoring the chat room? I'm not sure who's on the chat room or who's on the, okay. Do we have any questions for Sister Wakiti from our chat or any comments?
Yes, ma'am. We have a couple comments. Sister Georgina is on top of retweeting or reposting some of her, Sister Wakiti's comments, so praise be to Allah. And we had a question from Sister Georgina, or a comment. She says the time and what must be done must be included in instructions. Can she share suggestions for that?
Yes. When the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaks, most of the time and what must be done series parts. Each one typically has an overall objective or a particular subject that he's dealing with. And even though it's a particular subject, he may come with several different angles. Now, of course, because of everything that he says, really in truth, each sentence is a lesson within itself.
Yeah.
You can really base an entire lesson off of every 2 minutes of the time and what must be done. But the objective is, what is he saying? What is the gist of it? What is the subject of it? So if he is discussing, I think on part 23, last Saturday, the message was the SOS, to save our youth. If he is talking about saving our youth, then that's what I would do come Monday. Today is Monday, the first day of my lesson. I will talk and share a couple of points that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in saving our youth. I would talk about the benefits that he shared and the importance of them. And then, of course, I would talk about some current events. Right now, I guess is the horrible, tragic situation that happened in St. Louis. You have Mike Brown being buried today, as his mother and family members are preparing and have prepared already for his funeral today. That's an obvious SOS. The condition and the state of our Black boys and girls too, don't be mistaken by the media, but by all of our children. We're prey. We're human targets. It's a fight now for the virtue of our daughters. It's a fight now for the manhood of our sons. And I would utilize that in several different areas. Now, this is something I could probably do in a language class. We can talk about these current events, and I will have them to do some research papers on it. This is something I can do in an American history class and have them to do comparative analysis in a civil rights something or a civil rights era movement, an event that happened that could compare this time to now. This is something I can do in Islamic studies class and have them to talk about or find instances where they had young people who were young, like Ismail, like all of the Abraham, and even Jesus in truth was a teenager at the time that he was doing all of this, and he was a target by the same people within his government. And so I can bring it in an Islamic studies classroom. I can bring it in a language arts classroom. I can bring it in a social studies classroom. I can talk about the science of this and even bring it to the science of mating and tie it into Brother Nuri's lecture again on that Sunday. And as Brother Nuri started talking about the science of mating was a science that we were not supposed to know anything about. And he talked about the manhood and what it is that's under attack, and then go back and bring it to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So it's several different ways that you can realistically apply everything that he says. We just have to be creative in our thinking, and we have to be quick on our feet. And how do we do that? Again, we have to be the example. We have to eat right. We have to stay prayerful. We have to stay connected, because I can guarantee you, I'm not the smartest person in the room. However, I always want to surround myself with someone who's smarter than I. And so I have to make it a point. You know what? The minister said this. Do you have any ideas on what you're going to do tomorrow? I have to get on the phone and start asking some questions. What do you think about that? I'll start tweeting about it. Does anybody, you know, for those people who are good with social media, what do you think that was the highlight of this particular lecture today? You know, go back and read Brother Jesse's tweets. Brother Jesse, of course, you already know, is going to be one of the first people to kind of go and bring out all of the highlights. So I go and look and read his timeline. Oh, he made this point. I'm on this right now in science class. I just told my students that. And most of the time you'll see, and this is not a spooky type of thing, but you'll see from a spiritual level that when you are in truth in tune, a lot of the things that the minister says, a lot of the things that may come up on a lecture, you'll say, I just finished telling somebody that. I just finished talking to my students about this a couple of weeks ago. We were saying that. Oh man, I had this in mind that I wanted to share. I'm so glad the minister said that. And you go from there. But don't always lean on your own understanding. Ask other people if you're not the most creative one in the room. And if you are, just try to find as many lessons as you can possibly think of. We have what we like to call the Big Mac lesson plan. And just pile on every single subject. How can you incorporate this in language? How can, just like I just did verbally, I would put that on a piece of paper and sketch it out. You know, this is his point. How can I do that in math class? How can I say this in reading or in literature or in Islamic studies, so on and so forth. So that's a realistic example that I would do.
Wow, praise be to Allah. Thank you. Next, we have a question from our Twitter page. This comes from Sister Donna out in Memphis, Tennessee. Sister Donna wants to know, what's a good way to individualize teaching with a wide age range?
With a wide age range, it is really difficult. And that's where the organization will come from. Our structure is not like the traditional structure, because we don't have, if anybody did not know that, at the elevated places, we don't have grades. So a person who is 9 is not necessarily in the 4th grade. A person who is 10 is not necessarily in the 5th, and so on and so forth. We have what we called our own model of individualized instruction. And what individualized instruction is a performance level grouping. And that performance level grouping is all the students who can perform at that particular level regardless of age. So sometimes you may have a person who may be 13 and a little bit behind in their reading. If they're behind in their reading, how do they catch up when they're consistently being moved on and promoted grade after grade after grade after grade? And they'll still always be behind. And then what if you have this person who is 7 or 8 and they can read already on a collegiate level? Then they'll consistently always be bored. So we removed all of the grades because that's a major barrier to making sure that students are learning at a rapid rate, and just called what we have individualized instruction. And in individualized instruction, you may have a group, a homogeneous group by academic performance, but definitely heterogeneous in regards to age. So you may have somebody who may be 10 and 14 in the same classroom, but they're all doing Algebra 2. Why? Is because it's not necessarily about your age, it's about what it is that you can do. Once we remove that stigma away, then the age part doesn't matter. You can still give individualized instruction to various age groups if you group them based on performance. We kind of looked at the collegiate model, and if you look at college, you go there, they are just 18 who may be in their 20s, who may be in their 40s. My classroom in my first college, I had several age groups.
Okay, Sister Wakiti, if you can hear me, I think we're getting a lot of choppiness coming from your end. Okay, just bear with us, please. Having a few technical difficulties. Wow, okay. Did she just drop off? Okay. Let me re-invite Sister. Again, this is real time. We're live. Okay, she just joined. Okay. Okay, Sister Wakiti?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, yes, ma'am, I'm here. So we have, after the prerequisite classes in the morning time, we also have what we like to call the individual schools, where 2 days out the week we have the School of Medicine or the School of Liberal Arts or the School of Engineering. And again, this is a very, very heterogeneous group as it relates to age, but they all there to do the same thing. So why are you waiting until you get to college level in order to learn engineering if that's all I wanted to be anyway? Well, if that's what I want to do, then start now. So you may have somebody who may be 7 years old and they're already learning how to program. They already learn how to build. They're already learning the inner workings of what engineering is about, just as well as that 16 and 17-year-old may be in that same course room who's still learning and focusing on engineering because this is what I want to do. So again, to answer the question, how do we do individualized instruction when you're talking about students who are on various age levels? Easy. With performance grouping, and also by making sure that you're grouping them according to what it is that they want to do. Now, can you do that if you don't have the necessary amount of staff? That may be a challenge. However, again, when you start reflecting, am I able truly to give what I said that I was going to give to these students? You may have to trim down some. You may have to only focus on a particular specialty if it's just me. So if it's just me and I'm homeschooling 8 children and all 8 of them are 8 different ages, then I probably have taken on a little bit much. Because are they really going to be able to get everything that they need? So just be honest about yourself and your performance. And if you cannot do it, can I bring in somebody else to help a couple of days out the week, a couple of hours out of the day, to help break this down so that they can get the individual attention they need?
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, Sister Wakiti. We're going to check with Sister Tioka or Sister Dawn. Do we have any more questions or comments for Sister Wakiti before we start to close out?
No, ma'am. There's no more on the chat box.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. Sister Tioka. Can Sister Tioka? Oh. Okay, hold on. Let's get you unmuted, Sister Tioka.
Okay. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
yes.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. Did you have a comment or a question from your end?
I do not.
Okay.
Let me check. Wait. Hold on. I think one just came through.
Okay. Sister Tioka is manning our Facebook page.
Okay, I have a question and a comment. Okay.
Okay.
This is Sister Angela Muhammad off of Facebook, and she says, I like sister's thought on grades. We really focus more on performances than traditional grade levels. What are some ways she assesses how well a student knows and understands a subject? Thank you, Sister Angela, for your comment and question.
Okay, Sister Tioka, you may have to repeat it because Sister Wakiti dropped off and she just got back on. I'm not sure that she heard the full question. So we're going to give her a moment to get back on the screen, and then we'll re-ask that.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Did you hear the full question, Sister Wakiti?
I heard the last part. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. This is Sister Angela Muhammad. She says, I like sister's thought on grades. We really like to focus more on performances than traditional grade levels. What are some ways she assesses how well a student knows?
I understood.
Okay.
I was talking about how do you performance level rather than the assessment process. And I always ask the teachers, because assessment can come in so many different ways. It's not necessarily, and we have to get out of the box of our thinking, it's not always paper and pencil. It's a graded test, even though it can be. But we have teachers who do all type of creative methods. Many of our teachers give checkouts, like they're taught in the study technology, according to L. Ron Hubbard. They give checkouts, and the students may have to do demonstrations. They may have to do a project. The students may have to turn in something and do a presentation on it. And I have students young as 6 or 7 years old. So again, we did most of my assessments are through something project based. And I remember a while ago doing a project called Language Land, in which the students, and I think the age group was maybe about, again, it's various age groups, but this was I guess, equivalent to a middle school language course. And in Language Land, because we were talking about how each part of speech interacts with one another and the reality of where, just how to identify them. And they actually had to do a 3D model called Language Land, and there was Adjective Avenue, and they had the pronoun park, and they did all these different things, and they created these big, huge 3D models of an entire, future city type of exhibit where you have the airplanes and all the nation's farms and all of those things, and they articulated what each one was, and of course how it was active and connected to the Nation of Islam structure. And so it's so many different things that you can do outside of giving a person a paper and pencil test, even though sometimes that's necessary. And even if it is, it's not always necessary that it's done with 50 questions, with 20 questions, with 10 questions. That's not always necessary that it's done individual. Just because it's an assessment, it can still be done as a group. It can still be done in various methods. They've done documentaries before as assessments. They've done speeches as an assessment. They have drawn pictures and did clay demonstrations as assessments. So it's wide open. It's really just depends upon the teacher.
Sister, as you were speaking, Sister Wakiti, I thought of another question. How do you take those types of project-based learning assessments, and how do you put them on paper for, like, you know, the college applications and the, you know, and you have a portfolio for the students to send to college? Do they have a transcript? Like, how do you put all of those project-based assignments on paper to get them in college?
It would have to be based, again, because this is, and this is the way that you have to think. This is my school. So this is going to be based off of what I determined already was a set grade scale. So even within assessments and projects and all of that, there's still rubrics that are required. Everything is still professional and everything is still transparent. So as the parents should still be able to see, because all of our grades are online. The parents can log in at any time and see all of the students' grades and homework and classwork and tests, assessments, anything. All those things are still visible, but it has to be based on the rubric that I set. So if I'm telling you that if you get this question right already, that's a 100. If you have 2 wrong, it's a 90. Whatever the rubric is that I set. Now, this is not something that I'm making up as I go along. Again, we talked about planning an organization. I already have my grade set. I already have the way that I want to be assessed. And each project requires a different rubric, as we all know. So I'm not going to grade a paper and pencil test based off of the same way that I would something where the students may have had to do a writing assignment. And I may not grade a writing assignment the same way that I would do a project or a science experiment. They all may be done differently, but before I give it to the students, or even at the time that I give that out, I'm always giving the students an idea of exactly how they're going to be assessed. So it's no surprises across the board. The parents know how the students are going to be assessed, and more importantly, the students know how they're going to be assessed. The teacher knows how they're going to be assessed. So depending upon what the students' work ethic is, they tell and determine where they're going to fall. And this is what you did. You still get graded on it, but it's going to be according to the rubric that I set. So you still may have A's, you still may have B's, you still may have failures, unfortunately, and they still have transcripts, they still have grade reports, but on that grade report, instead of the actual grade, it may have the level. Instead of an individual project, they may have, you know, the subject. So you still may say algebra 1 or algebra 2. Now what falls under that is what I said, because again, we all have to have this attitude that this is my school. And sometimes we're too intimidated to do that because you feel like you have to be bogged into a particular constraint to follow state guidelines. But no, our students, praise be to Allah, we just graduated our first high school class. They graduated with no problems and were able to get into college with no problems. All of them in universities of their choice with no problems. Many on full scholarships with no problems. All with the same transcript. So it works. Don't let anybody intimidate any of us into thinking that you have to be accredited. You have to follow a particular way that the state will tell you to do. All of those things are totally irrelevant. This is my school, and I'm going to do it the way the messenger said it.
That's right. Go ahead, Sister Wakiti. I like that. Praise be to Allah. We have, yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm getting a lot of, from you talking, we're receiving a lot of questions now. We have a question from our chat room, right, Sister Dawn? If you want to go ahead and give that question, and then I have another question coming in on my phone.
Okay, yes, ma'am. One of the questions I believe she just answered, but if she wants to add anything else, was that since you do project-based learning, do you use state standards for this? And that was from Brother Eric. And also from Brother Eric was, what tool do you use to make the subject material interesting?
Can you repeat the first?
The first question? Okay. Yes. Brother Eric asks, since you do project-based learning, do you use state standards for this?
Problems hearing her.
I'm sorry. Let me see.
Okay, yes, ma'am. She was asking, do you use state standards since you do project-based learning? She said that you probably already answered that a little bit, but that was one of the questions from one of the audience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
But let me just say this, as far as the making sure that this is what we like to do when we plan. And remember, we talked about planning. What we like to do is look at the state standards, open them up. You know, all of the state standards are visual online. Look at the state standards for your particular area, for your particular student, and all of that. And then think about, again, what is it that I would like to get over on the students? Because the state standards, in truth, are very, very basic. Sometimes we're intimidated by them, but it may be as basic as a student must analyze or be able to compare two written materials or two written works or something like that. It's very basic. So don't get caught up or intimidated on the state standards. Look at what it is that they need you to do to make sure that you are doing it, but it always add your own. Always add your own standards. Because if you realize that the state standards and God's standards are going to be two totally different levels. Two totally different levels. Our knowledge and truth surpasses all of that. Yes. It surpasses it. So if you plan a good lesson, I guarantee you have already encompassed all of the state lessons, but you do want to have it up just to make sure that, and sometimes it can be just as small as a small addition. I'll go back and have them define this word. Okay, I'll go back and make sure I do clear the word on what a homonym, a homograph is, or a homophone. It's really, really simple to make sure that those things are met.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Sister, did you answer? Yes, ma'am, you did. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Sister Dawn, was there another part to that question?
Let's see. Yes, ma'am. It was what tools do you use to make the subject material interesting?
Yeah, the material interesting. Again, and I'm only I can't, none of this is from me, in truth, and I said this several times, I never profess to be the smartest one in the room. I only can go off of what the minister says. And he said several things about interesting. Once he said that learning should always be fun, and he said, well, what is fun? He said learning new things. Then he talked about in Torchlight for America how education should be relevant to the student. How can you relate the content area to them? How am I mathematics, or how am I science? He also talked about making sure that the information was relevant. Just recently, in the Twitter book, which is to me his most recent revelation, or his most recent book, he says, because of a question that a parent asked, and she said, my daughter is 14 or 15, a teenager, and she's having trouble with connecting or being a part of the Nation of Islam. What do you do? And he said, well, the students have to find themselves involved in it, and they have to see themselves doing something. All of this has to be something that's relevant to them. So that's how I keep it interesting. If it's something that I'm really not fond of, I'm not going to be interested in it. It doesn't really matter how it's presented to me. You know, golf may not be something that I want to sit through. I don't really want to sit through that class because it's nothing that interests me at all. Unless you're going to sit around and tell me how, you know, well, do you know that if you do this in golf, it may perfect this other skill in teaching, which is something I'm passionate about. Oh, really? Well, how is that? So always finding connections. You have to be able to connect to the student. And again, that question was based off of something we shared earlier, being very honest about your reflections and your communication to them. Do I know my students? If I knew them, then I wouldn't have to be worried about keeping their interest, because I know what interests them. I know what kind of music that they like to listen to. I know who their favorite artists are. I know what their favorite pastimes are. I know all of this because I know my students. I know what they're going to do when they grow up, And because of that, I get an opportunity to help steward them in the direction that I would want them to go in. Because unfortunately, they do listen to teachers, and we are very influential in their lives. And so I have several students who want to be attorneys. Those are my little ones. They shadow me, and we go through different things. I have to put them in different environments to make sure that they're being brought up and nurtured to be what it is that God wants them to be. But how does it stay interesting? It stays interesting because it's connected to them, something that interests them, something that brings out who they are, something that allows for them to have an individual expression.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And then this next question is, can you give some resources like websites or books to so that we can learn more about the project-based learning?
I know Edutopia is one that they're always sending information on project-based learning, because it is thousands of articles out there. Unfortunately, I had to read through most of them. But Edutopia, E-D-U, I believe, Topia.com. Edutopia is one of those online magazine resource that you can look up. There's several articles on project-based learning, and YouTube as well. They have several different links on YouTube to make it relevant and to kind of show you. But project-based learning does take several months to prepare for. So we always like to start in September after we kind of look at the students and assess who they are and what they're about. Start trying to plan to do that in January, February. Start planning a project-based assignment, because it will take several months to get through, because it's all of your subjects all encompassed into one. But extremely challenging, extremely critical in its analysis and the way that it gets through. But it definitely deals on the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Thank you, sister. I have one more comment, not a question, it's just a comment, but you know, out here in Twitter world, everyone wants a transcript of this whole presentation, because this is one of the best professional developments that they've ever attended. That's from Sister Donna out in Memphis, Tennessee. So praise be to Allah. And we want to thank our audience for listening. At this time, Sister Wakiti, are there any closing remarks that you want to make, any initiatives that are coming up with you or your school? At this time, we would definitely like to hear those.
I definitely just, again, want to apologize to anybody if it sounds like I'm rushing through the material. I definitely wanted to stay within the confines of the time that we were given and we had allotted. We do travel to do professional development. If you would like a more profound or more intensive professional development, where we can come in and assess exactly what it is that you're doing, assess your students, and help you to come up with some different ideas and some different things to help change the culture, we're definitely open to doing that. So please contact us as soon as possible so that you can get on the schedule for in-house professional development. We are striving to do a national professional development month, and with the help of the MUI Homeschool Network, we are very, very excited to present that. Hopefully, inshallah, is going to start on this September. We'll do the same exact format through the Google Hangouts. Sister Kadara and her staff would definitely help in bringing that into fruition. And we're just very, very excited about doing that. We want to take the best and the brightest educators from all across the nation. So Sister Donna in Memphis and Brother Eric in Houston, Texas. And for all of those, I know Sister Latanya in Atlanta, all Brother Shahid in Chicago, and so many of our wonderful genius educators would love to have them to come in and present once a month on Teacher Tuesday on how we can all step up our game and how we can all make sure that we're bringing our absolute best to the table. Very excited about that. And through those professional developments, you'll be hearing about a lot of national initiatives that we're going to do across the board that is going to encompass every Ministry of Education department within every city. So even if you don't have a school, your children too can be a part of everything that we're doing through the Ministry of Education, because we have to get these ministries up and running. the minister is leaving it up to us. And I think that we're in good hands as the Ministry of Education because we're already working through different venues like this and through all these other initiatives. We're already working a lot. So we just need to organize. We want to make sure, as Brother Nuri said yesterday, and I saw my son, Brother Allende, from Sister Kadara's son that we have to share. I saw him retweeted yesterday that it's very important that we not confuse motion with order. The first step is always motion, so we all working. But the second step is definitely order. And if we're not organized, it kills and repels the motion. So we have to make sure that while we're all doing something and while the momentum is high, that we stay organized and that we're able to move. If one person is doing a fundraiser, we can all do them across the Nation of Islam. If we're doing one science day on Saturday, then every student throughout the Nation of Islam should be able to do the same thing. We want to announce this We Are One initiative, and this We Are One campaign and this We Are One initiative is going to eradicate all of the feelings of feeling like you're always left out of the loop because my son doesn't attend an MUI, or they're not homeschooled, or unfortunately I have to put them in public school because I'm a single parent and I have to work. Right. Then we want to eradicate all of the excuses and give all of our students the benefit of a divine and a God-centered education. So through the We Are One initiative, we want to do the Teacher Tuesdays with professional developments and just start laying out a bunch of different things. We want to get a calendar that everybody can use throughout the Ministry of Education, that again, that we're all on the same page. And I like to use this as my last statement. I always say, well, what is the goal? What is the objective? The objective is for all of us to be on the same objective. And that is to make sure that we're putting our goals in line with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So thank you all so much for having me. I'm very humbled by this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
Something. So may Allah bless us all with a wonderful school year.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sister Wakiti. I know this broadcast ends at 4:30, so at this time, I want to let the audience know that all of this information in the broadcast, it was recorded, so you will be able to look at this broadcast over and over again as you need to get any pertinent information that will be helpful to you in your school environment, okay? So I want to make that known. Also, we will reconvene tomorrow for day 2. We're going to have Brother Eric and Sister Haji. That's the dynamic duo. That's what I'm calling them. Yes, and they are from Houston, Texas as well. Praise be to Allah. So they're going to be presenting on tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's 8 a.m. Central. Okay, so let's just be ready. Let's get up, say our prayers, and be ready to get this information in as well. So at this time, if there are any other questions from Sister Wakiti, what you can do is you can go on Twitter. She is on Twitter at Wakiti Muhammad. Okay, so make sure you can contact her personally at Wakiti Muhammad. Is there another way that they can also contact you personally, Sister Wakiti, via email or?
Via email is fine at elevatedplaces1 at gmail.com. And of course, they can always go to our website, theelevatedplaces.com.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm just now seeing, okay, we got to take this. One of our co-founders, actually Sister Rita and Sister Tioka are the co-founders of MUI Homeschool Network, and Sister Rita just had one last question. I would hate to deny her a question. Sister Dawn, do you have it really quickly? Because it's 4:24, so we have 6 minutes, y'all. 6 minutes to get fresh. Come on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sister Rita asked, what is a typical day like from morning to afternoon? Hold on, I'm going back to the question here. Let's scroll down. Apologies. Okay, what is typically a day like for your students from morning to afternoon?
In truth, she can definitely go to the website. I know we have a small amount of time, but she can always to the website. It's theelevatedplaces.com. There's an actual video. It's like a 20-minute video that discusses this along with my co-founder, Melva Muhammad. We're both on there talking about different parts of the program. The students start off with prayer, of course, and a good word from the minister, and our school song and the fight song, all of the traditional things. Of course, they start off their morning with drill. If anybody knows, I have to put in an extra little plug there. We are the winning the junior MGT, who are the darlings across the Nation of Islam. Those are our girls. And so I drill every day. Every day they do that. And then, of course, they have their prerequisites. The prerequisites are their main. We break it down. In truth, it's just like a college schedule. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they have certain courses. So on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they may have their reading and language arts, their math and sciences. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have their supplementary courses, which are like their Islamic studies, Spanish, of course, their history, or either our story, depending upon what level they're in. And those are all from 8 to 12. After 8 to 12, you have their individual schools are after lunch. And the individual schools is where the students actually go into their future desired area of study, which is the School of Engineering or School of Liberal Arts, School of Medicine, and so on and so forth. They do that on 2 days out the week, and then the other days they have other classes which are like life skill courses for all the students. So some of them may have culinary arts, some may have sewing, they do chess, they do taekwondo, agriculture, you know, even male-female relationships come up. They've had metaphysics. It's so much going on. You would think it's extremely unorganized, but it's not. Just go to the video on the website, theelevatedplaces.com. There's a brief tutorial and video, and you can watch it.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Thank you so much. Again, come back tomorrow, day 2. You can go to our website, www.muihsn.com, for all of the presentations that are going to be happening this week. Okay, and we thank you so much, Sister Wakiti, for, I mean, this is just a wonderful breath of knowledge that you just gave us today. I really do appreciate you. We all appreciate you and the work that you are doing in Houston, Texas. Yes, praise be to Allah. So at this time, we are going to just close out now in our prayer. All right, attention prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praises are due to Thee, O Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of this day of requital. Thee do we serve, and Thee do we beseech for help. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Ameen.
Thank you all.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you, Sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.